Hey there. How's it going? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's safe to say it's been an adventure to get this whole thing set up and running.
Well, it didn't help that we just walked in the door, like 15 minutes ago. So
Yes.
we
Yeah.
are nothing if not.
Doing it in hard mode.
I guess. Where were we?
We were at our son's adjudication. It was
Do you
his.
know what that word means?
Yeah, he was seeing his parole officer.
Try again.
It's when the local school orchestras get together and get judged harshly by other adults.
That gets much closer to the truth.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
What is
yeah.
the actual definition?
I mean, that's close enough. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, they go and they get assessed basically by musical professionals, and they get very kindly told what they could do better.
And they get assessed as a group, right?
Yeah,
it's not,
as a group.
There's
yeah.
not individual like play for me and they have to play a thing or anything like that.
As they get older, it gets a little more technical. When they're younger, inevitably they're getting told they need to look up and follow their conductor
Yeah.
time and time again. But yeah, so we drove all the way across town to watch 15 minutes of performance and came back.
And then fly back here and get going. We just hung our fancy wall art today, and I'm waiting for it to fall off in the middle of the show. So we'll see if it stays. I think I knew what I was doing when I was hanging it up, but we'll just have to
Well, we'll
wait
see
and
how
see.
it goes.
Wait and see.
That being said, I'm pretty sure we know everybody who's watching, but should we do some brief introductions?
Sure.
You go first.
Okay. I'm Bruce, CEO and founder of Turngate, and been doing cybersecurity for a long, long time. And I probably talk too much and don't say enough useful things. So we'll see if that equates to entertainment for the next hour.
You made me laugh.
There you go.
All right. Would you like to introduce me too? Because that was kind of funny.
No,
No,
I do not
no,
want to
I would-
introduce you.
I've already, I forgot to tell you, I was introduced by AI in a forum earlier today.
Oh,
And it was quite amusing.
did it get it right?
It actually quite got it right. I was flattered. It was kind of like, what's her name on stage? Oh, you like me. You really like me. I was like, AI likes me. They really like me. It was quite amusing. But I think you can do better.
This is Heidi Potter. She's the COO of Turngate, and you may surmise through the last name that we are actually married. So
We don't look alike, so I don't think
that's
they would
true.
think
Yeah,
that'd be
we're not
odd,
brother and sister.
awkward.
It's actually through marriage that we're related. But Heidi ran ShmooCon for 20 years and
Ish.
plus or minus. And I work for her in that capacity. And so now the tables have turned, and she works for me at Turngate. So
I make him pay me though.
yeah, I didn't get paid. It was just thousands of hours of free labor, as it turns out, for me.
Well, it was free labor for me too. So
Well,
it's
that's
funny
fair.
how that works out. It's not like I made more than you did.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Anyway, so this is the first actual show. We had a few shakedowns that we did before, and so we'll see how these go. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see if we can make these educational and entertaining, which I think is always the goal. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, kind of came up with the show structure. The first thing we're going to do is talk about some kind of current things that have happened. I'm afraid to call it events because events make it sound like we're going to go like Les Nessman news. Les Nessman was a character
There may be people who don't know who that is.
on WKRP, which was a sitcom, which was a television show. All those words may need contextualization for anyone under the age of 25. But in general, Les was he was kind of the wacky news guy with a very strange sense of what was important and what wasn't.
But this is true. But since we're already way off topic, that show, you don't need to watch it, except you do on one day of the year, every year.
Every year. You should watch WKRP on Thanksgiving and watch the turkey drop episode.
We won't give anything away.
Won't give everything away, but I will say it's one of the finest bits of American comedy because the entire show, all 22 minutes of it, lead up to the last line of the show. The last line is the punchline of the show. And it's well worth watching. We still watch it as a family every year. We've given up on a lot of other holiday programming, but we will still watch the WKRP Thanksgiving turkey drop episode because it is a pretty well set up joke.
Yeah.
So.
No, I am in complete and utter agreement on that one.
All right. So current events, Les Nessman style. We will talk about a little bit this week. We want to talk about the report that Datadog released around their cloud infrastructure security playbook. And
Those osprey nests.
I think those are osprey.
They
I don't
gotta be
know
osprey
if
nest. Well,
Datadog has like an official bird mascot.
they do
Um,
now.
yeah, I guess. So I worked at a company, actually the company that bought our previous company. It was an organization called the
He's worked places.
I've
Can
worked
you
places.
tell?
It was called the KW Corporation, and it was named after Key West and the Key West Airport Code. And so
Do you know, I actually had to be told that because I was like,
I didn't know what it meant.
I didn't even make the leap to like KW being Key West,
Yeah,
right? Like I just
and the
didn't.
logo was this
But
awful, like, with all due respect to the folks that were there, it was like a weird psychedelic parrot thing. And they went through a rebranding episode
shortly after you were there.
after I was there, and they decided after a lot of brand discussion they wanted to keep the parrot as the like the logo.
But no, I mean, they had like wholeheartedly embraced this Florida Key West thing. Like
For
all
sure.
of the rooms were named after Key West things.
There's wicker furniture in the lobby.
There was wicker furniture in the lobby. Like it was a whole like. We wish it was warm. It just get warm in Maryland. I don't know why I said that, but
Warm all the time.
like I mean, it was like Jimmy Buffett music in the elevators kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a wholehearted embracing of the theme.
Yeah. And they decided they wanted to keep the parrot, a parrot for the logo, but then they needed to be like, we did Intel and national security work, so it had to be like a stern parrot. And so
parrots are actually kind of nasty.
they
so-
are, yeah, on their own right. They are kind of jerks.
I mean, they can be. They're not all parrots.
No, but what was interesting then? So we bring in these brand people, and they decide they want to keep a parrot.
The moral of this story is, folks, is it'll take us a long time to get to our point.
Yeah, to get to where we're going in this. So, so we ended up with like hundreds of logo options, and we had to have discussions of like, well, that looks more like an eagle, and that looks like a robin. No, the beak is too long. We learned an awful lot about like bird anatomy and facial features of birds and what made a parrot versus other tropical birds versus birds of prey. And then once we finally honed in on all the characteristics of a parrot, we had to come up with like a stern parrot. And I remember there was one day, it was a 10 by 10 grid, 100 different stern parrots. And we had to determine which was the most stern and the thing that represented us. And that was, I reached the point, I'm like, I'm out. I just can't. Anyway, these might be peregrine falcons and Datadog's thing. So,
Well, it's certainly a seabird of prey.
yes, yes. Anyway, that was the whole discussion was that. Anyway, so one of the things that I appreciate about Datadog is
We just tore the whole picture apart.
is the fact that they're very transparent about their security program, and they will talk a lot about what they do both programmatically and with their own products and how they leverage their own product, which I think is actually pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I was trying to throw it to you is, you spent a lot of time, especially with ShmooCon, like trying to be transparent about the things that mattered to help other people, right? And so I think there's a kind of a cultural rudder about like, even if this isn't your mainline business, you should at least like, for the problems that other people are likely to encounter, arm them with information so they don't make the same mistakes that you make.
Yes, absolutely. But I could go on a whole different riff on transparency, and we can do that if you want to, because you and I both know that while we are both fully in the transparency camp, we do approach it a little differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's appropriate to this article. Would you like to actually
Well,
talk about the article?
Sure. Well, we'll stay slightly more on topic. I think that the idea, especially with Datadog as a large provider of kind of services around data analytics and system visibility in this space, to understand how they use their products, I think is really useful as a potential customer. And it's something that I know like Okta does very well, and it's something that we're working to do at Turngate as well, is to project forward not just like how we do things internally so that A, you can have confidence in what we do, but also B, learn from what we've done, but then how do you use your product, right? Like what characteristics, what things do you do? What's the best practice? And I think that kind of transparency is super useful, right?
I sort of love the idea of sort of like being your own customer, talking about methodologies and ideas and why you've chosen what you've chosen,
Yeah,
right? Like, here's the why. Agree with me, disagree with me, tell me what, right?
yeah,
Um, and having those discussions out loud at the right time.
yeah. And I think in an early stage company, this ends up being a discriminator, right? Because it's not like people don't know who you are. And when I was at Expel, that was something I think we did a lot of early days was like, hey, we tried to talk a lot about, what we were doing as a company, talk about the programs that we had built, both on the SOC side and then on the security program side, and even on the sales and marketing side, they were pretty transparent. And it generated content, right? Like it gave you things to talk about, and customers, even if they weren't in a buying motion, they'd be like, oh yeah, I read that article that you wrote on the NIST CSF or on how you think about security investigations or whatever, and that kept you top of mind when they did kind of get into that buying kind of motion.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, no more peregrines. We can move on.
I actually can't say that Falcon word.
Peregrine.
There's a couple weird words
I'm
I
not
can't
sure
say,
that
and
I'm
that's
even
one of
saying
them.
it right, but
I think you are correct.
okay. We should have a
They're
peregrine
all
versus
over
parrot fight.
Alaska.
Peregrines are?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew they were West Coast, and they made it all.
They actually named one of the charter schools up there
It's a good
after that. Yeah.
podcast we're having on birds.
Well, we're on to random facts right now, so we can we'll just include that as a random fact. And speaking of things that start with P, the name of our episode today is Picking on Peg, and we're going to explain that in a second. But like many people named Peg, Peg is one of our employees, and Peg's full name is Margaret. So I went looking like why are Margaret's Pegs, right? Do you have any idea?
It's I can't even come up with something cute. No,
Well,
I actually have no
there
idea.
really actually isn't a whole lot of cute behind it. So, as you can imagine, they became Maggies, right?
Right. Okay.
And and so this is all from the internet, so we can blame the internet if this is false. Let's blame the internet for everything. So Margaret's were Maggies, and due to accents and other things, they became like Meggies
Okay.
and Megs. And over time, and perhaps due to more accents and crazy things, they became Peggies and Pegs.
Really?
I think it's kind of as simple as that.
That's a pretty thick accent that converts an M to a P.
Listen,
I'm not here to throw shade over people that spoke differently a long time ago.
and somewhere in all of that, there's also a Daisy that comes out of that, and I couldn't track that
For
down.
Margaret?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that I would not have guessed. I mean, there's the whole universe of Charlie, Chuck, Chaz.
Jack and John,
That one I've never
Harry,
understood.
Henry, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't bother to look all of those up, but they do exist.
Yeah,
So
it's a strange shorthand thing, right? Like to be able to like, especially Jack and John, like it's not even shorthand. They're both 4 letters or 1 syllable, and you've converted. It's almost the
you
same.
can't
word.
even spell it the same forwards and backwards.
No, yeah. Or even Robert and Bob. Like, why did we go from an R to a B? Like, I don't know.
I don't know, but I will look that up.
So, would you like to explain the title of today's show?
Well, certainly I would. So, Peg is one of our amazing employees in our front end side of things, but we don't really pick on her. I mean, maybe we do. We pick on everybody a little bit, but it's all with love. But we were Bruce was doing some research as he does, and in doing so, discovered something which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But in our platform, we have the ability to save searches or save queries, right? And the research that he was doing, he discovered some data, and it happened to all center around Peg. So he saved this query and called it basically Peg,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And in our ecosystem right now inside of our product, we're all in there together. So we can all see, like we're all shared admins, right? So, and right now, this is the only saved query amongst all of us in our product environment. And so Peg can see this, and it's the only saved one. So she went in there the other day and she saw this, and she was kind of like, why is there a saved query on just me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To be clear, like our own tenant is our own live data, right? Like we actually ingest our own Okta and GitHub and Google Workspace data and all that, and that's one of our test corpuses. So in prod, we have a prod instance for ourselves that we use to figure out how things are going. So Peg logs into prod with all our live data, and the only thing there,
the only saved query,
saved query,
right, is one about her.
Peg.
So we had a company meeting the other day, and Bruce and I actually logged in like 30 seconds later, and everybody else. And as we log in, we see Peg laughing, and she's telling this story about how she logged into prod and she saw this saved query, and she's like, "Oh my God, what is it? I don't know." And she's fine, and we just started laughing because we hadn't told her about it yet.
Yeah.
Nor had we told her that this whole episode was actually going to be about her, but it is, and it is about her with her permission. So,
yeah.
Anyway, backing up, that's actually, we weren't looking into Peg when this whole started. We were doing something else. What were we doing?
So, amusingly, again, when you're kind of early stage startup and you're having to generate content and things, and do the socials and whatnot, you sometimes kind of maybe looking for new content that you hadn't really thought about
you're grasping
before.
at straws.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
You're grasping.
My call, making shit up. We're just going for it. And so Kyle, who's our CTO, and I are kind of regularly talking about the data that we ingest and the kind of idiosyncrasies with different data sources, and complaining about different vendors and interacting with them and pulling the data and all kinds of stuff. And so we had kind of been in one of our therapy sessions with each other, venting about this, and I was like, hey, can you give me just like a top 10 event types from all the data sources for the Turngate tenant for the last 72 hours? So basically, what are the most common logs that we see in Turngate, right? Because it speaks a little bit to us as an organization. And so, Kyle went and ran a query and got me a nice little, I would say CSV, but he did a tab delimited thing, which was like really annoying to get a tab delimited. I couldn't think of the last time I had a TSV. But anyway, so he sends me this TSV, throwing weird shade about file formats, but such is life. So he sends me one. I run
into them way more often than you do.
TSVs, really?
I mean, occasionally, yeah. Wow. But think about the interfaces I get to use.
Are you a person that puts spaces in file names? See, I mean, there's a thing, like either you believe a space belongs in a file name.
I don't believe it exists. I mean,
8.3, baby, you can't put spaces in file names. Like I'm to this day, I will not willingly put a space in the file name.
Listen.
Get off my lawn. Anyway, so Kyle gets me this list. And first of all, and we posted this on LinkedIn, the number one by an order of magnitude.
Oh, this is where we pick on another employee real quick, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we'll pick on another employee. The number one event that we see most regularly in our environment, and this has been true for months, are updates to calendar events. And to give you an idea, I think in 72 hours, we saw like 13,000 calendar event updates.
Now, I wish we were that busy.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, if only we had that many meetings. But it turns out that the rest of all the other activities combined, put together, was only in like the 700 or 800 range, right? And so you're like, what the hell is going on with 13,000 calendar events in a day and a half in a company of 12 people? Right. Any guesses? Oh, you know the answer.
Well, I know the answer, but you want me to pretend guess?
Sure.
Well, I can't even pretend
guess. Yeah, okay. No pretend guessing. So the issue in this case is actually a third-party calendar maintenance app, a thing that babysits your calendar and helps you manage your calendar and all that kind of thing. And it's some AI product. I don't want to name the vendor for.
No, but it's going like cross-platform, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
so
yeah. It's like you can reach into all your different calendar places and it hauls it together and it keeps track of everything for you and whatever. And every 3 hours, it goes and re-verifies everything, just the world. And so this employee, it's actually Taylor, our
sorry,
sales.
Taylor.
Yeah, sorry, Taylor, sales guy, Taylor. He's got a lot of meetings on his calendar, a bunch of them reoccurring and whatever. And every 3 hours, this little AI bot just is like, well, let me check on all that again. And it goes into Google and checks on each individual one. And every time it does it, it generates a new audit record.
So we were talking about this on the way over here, leaving here. I don't remember. We were talking about this. Actually, we've talked about it a lot in the last couple of days. And I was like, why? Logs are something we talk about a lot these days. Actually, that's really funny because not only are we talking about data logs, we've actually talked about real life tree logs a lot recently too. I mean, if you don't know, Bruce's family is a family of lumbermen, so this is a topic that actually comes up honestly in our lives.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
just a thing. But I was actually a little gobsmacked because I was like, why are these entries getting repeated and repeated if there's no changes?
Yeah, and it's really because it was just accessed, right? Like something came over the wire, pinged it, checked on it, and Google emits a log for it. Right.
Which I mean, I get it, but is it necessary information?
Yeah, and what we see in these different products when we look at the audit records is that every single like application that Google has creates logs in a slightly different way and for a slightly different purpose. And so the people that are responsible for Google Calendar feel like it's really important to let you know that some bot came and checked on a calendar invite, right? And so they'll just generate all kinds of, data around that. And so what we see is that, not everything you want generates an audit record, and things that you don't want oftentimes will generate a ton of them. And so, like, if I'm troubleshooting or if I'm trying to track down a malicious calendar invite that came from a third party or something like that, it can actually be challenging to cut through all the cruft of like this bot that's coming in thousands and thousands of times a day. And that's just one employee. I mean, if we had, 20 or 30 employees using this, it would literally be like 250,000 records a day.
And if you don't know what you're looking for, you could also accidentally then not see something of value, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's pretty easy to hide a needle in that haystack. And I think what one of the concrete examples of that we saw recently, where the audit record wasn't generated for the thing that we really wanted to see, was a few weeks ago. Microsoft announced that some APT had been basically exploiting companies by tricking people into getting onto a Teams meeting with someone they thought was support, and then allowing or having the person on the other end do allow remote control of the workstation, which that's bad. Like, I'll just go out and say, like, not an ideal situation. But in Google Teams, or excuse me, Microsoft Teams, you would get an audit record for when the person shared their screen. It'd be like, oh, here's the time in which the user shared the screen. But there would be no audit record for the allowing of the remote control of the remote workstation. Now, I would argue that's a critical thing, right? Like, that's a really important thing that you probably want your users or your administrators and your security people to know about. And there's no record of it. And so I think what we found as we dig through logs, an example we're going to go through today is a little bit of that kind of thing, is individual teams in these SaaS companies that generate these records are doing it for whatever purpose they think the users need it for. But I don't know that they're necessarily talking with the user about, like, hey, what do you think you're going to do with this? Because I think, if they were to ask my blunt feedback about calendars, I'd be like, hey, I need a way to easily discriminate weird bot activity from like a human being involved, right? And the data internals of that log aren't necessarily structured in a way that allow us to make that determination right now. So anyway, so rewind the stack.
You had asked Kyle to pull a report for you.
Yes. And so Kyle pulled the top 10, and after we kind of pushed aside the calendar stuff, we looked at the rest of the log entries, and there was stuff like people updating Google Documents and that kind of thing. And then we saw one that was logins, Google logins. And it was like, hey, what generates these logins? You know, it was actually kind of just a passing question, because we are an Okta shop. We have been from day one, which may seem a little weird for a small startup, but like, we wanted the signal from Okta for the product that we made, but also we pretty heavily into automation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like whenever we get a new employee or a contractor, we can just kind of one button provision, and Okta, helped us on that journey. And so we've been an Okta shop from day one. But people log into Okta, they're not logging into Google. So why did this Google login happen? And that's the story we're going to tell today. Are you ready?
We're going to try and see if this works, right?
I'm going to test the demons.
Well, here, let me. No, you should be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is the current state of our app, but I'll just give you a heads up. This is all going to be changing soon, right? So.
Yeah, actually. Do
you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah,
as we jump topics again really quick.
I think it's useful. So we went GA about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago.
I don't even know what month it is now. March?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of feedback from early customers and early trial users about the experience, and a lot of them have had success in investigating security incidents and doing troubleshooting and that kind of thing. But one of the sets of feedback they had is they got to kind of the landing page, and they were like, well, it's not quite clear how to get back to what I was doing before, or to to engage in a new query or whatever. And so the first thing we did was we looked at what are the high level use cases that all the things that the customers have told us they're trying to do fall into, like what are the big buckets. And then after we determine those buckets,
I mean, we had a workshopping session, right?
Yeah.
And based on feedback from the customers and then conversations with other folks, we had a workshopping session in and amongst ourselves.
Well, and then we gathered a whole bunch of ideas from other places.
Oh,
too.
yeah. I suppose before that, yeah. Actually, Bruce and I spent some time and just kind of went internet shopping, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of looked at a bunch of ideas online and put those together in one place and made some basic comments about what we thought. And they weren't great examples. Like, we didn't spend a ton of time. We just grabbed, screen captures of things that gave the idea of what we were looking for. But then dumped those all in one place, and then had a workshopping session with our team, and then just came up with what we thought our next steps were. So anyway, we'll spend time on that maybe in a future stream. But more to the point, what you see on the screen now is changing, and changing for the better. We're super, super excited about it. So, what you see here is temporary.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to actually, so you can bring up the right view for the next step. Actually, are you ready?
Well, I'm not sure which view you were looking for.
Let's do the heat map first, I guess, and that's probably okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah. But oh, look, the demo demons have bitten us. So what?
Nothing.
Okay. So we dug into one of the login events that was interesting to us, and we just grabbed one, and it was actually Pegs. And it wasn't because we were picking on Peg or anything like that. It was just like...
But we are, because it was cute and it rhymed, I guess.
Yeah. So we just grabbed one and looked at it. And so my first question when I looked at this was really like, what caused this login event, right? Like, what was the purpose? What caused Google to fire a login event? Was it somebody actually logging into Google Workspace? Was it somebody doing like freebie SSO? So for those that don't know, if you want to add SSO to your SaaS product that you're buying, oftentimes there's a big, what we call the SSO tax associated with it, right? Like they make you buy up to an enterprise level, and sometimes it's like an exotic multiplier of the cost of the contract. So it might be like $10 per seat, but if you want the enterprise license, it's 50 or whatever just to get SSO. So the dirty secret is if they support Google and you back it into some other SSO provider, you still get SSO through their Google integration. So I'm like, okay, maybe Peg's using something that uses Google as kind of like that freebie SSO thing. So we pulled up the first audit entry that was the Google login success thing, and then so it's like esoteric Google entry that Heidi's bringing up. We are not doing a live demo just because we're trying to protect Peg's PII, and we can't strike out all the things on the fly. So we have screenshots of what it looks like. So Heidi's bringing up the first log. She's looking very concerned as she does
I'm
it.
just making sure I've hidden the things that need to be hidden. So
Okay.
I think we are.
Okay, we're good. So we bring up this thing, and
that's everything you wanted, right?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Is that?
It should only have 6 data points.
Well,
That's because
it's because it reset when I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna put it back to you.
Okay, you put it back to me, and I'll stretch.
Okay, we're fine.
Time-honored
It's all
tradition.
gonna be fine.
Krusty the Clown stretching.
It's all good. Just keep talking. You are fine. We should be fine now. Okay.
Okay, we're good?
Yes.
Okay. Here, let's try it. Woo.
I can't reach behind my computer.
Yeah. We're still working on positioning of everything. So we've got all these events. Can you sort them the other direction?
Oh, sure. Certainly.
So down at the bottom, you'll see this login underscore success. So first of all, I love stuttering logs that are like login. It's like a record scratch. That's the log entry that originally that we went looking at.
You do not have a career as a rap artist, by the way.
I don't have what?
A career as a rap
artist.
Oh,
God, no. No, I don't have a career as any kind of artist, actually, as it turns out, especially one that involves my voice. I can do spoken word, okay,
this is true.
I can't do any of the other.
This is true. Okay.
So anyway, so this is our interface. This is just a table view of the logs, and so I pulled up this login entry, and then you've got the screenshot of that that you can bring up. And what we're going to see here in a second.
Yeah, I have to switch over.
Okay. I'll give you.
It'll happen.
We didn't rehearse this too much.
You can keep talking.
I'm gonna. Okay.
It's amazing how much you can keep talking.
Yeah, that's fair. So we bring up this raw log, and so this is the entirety of this login event, and it's a bit of an eye chart. But if you look, there is actually no indication of where the hell this thing came from, right? So when you're doing any kind of investigation, you're doing forensics, you're trying to figure out like what's happening in your SaaS log, and you see this login success, you're like, oh, I think this account was compromised or whatever the hell you're trying to investigate. And you click on this thing and you literally get like a username and an IP and like a 2 thumbs up. The user was authenticated. And that's it. There's no connection to any other events. There doesn't tell you where it came from. There's no service associated with this. It is really next to useful, right? And it's actually it's terrifyingly bad because there's some things in here that look like they might be connective tissue to other parts of the audit record, but they're not. There's a thing there, if you look closely up toward the top, it's called an e-tag. An e-tag is effectively like a hash in Google land. And so if you are pinging an object and the object hasn't changed, it'll always have the same e-tag in the audit record. And if the e-tag is different, you know something about the calendar change or the file or whatever the heck it was. That's all that means. It doesn't actually provide a pointer back and forth in time or anything like that. And so when we go back and look at the list of all the different logs and whatnot associated with Peg, what we have to do is say, okay, this log is almost meaningless. What else was happening with Peg at this time that would have generated this particular audit record? And so we're going to rewind the clock here and look, and we're going to see that there was another Google Workspace event that happened just prior to the login success. And this is this token authorized thing. And so this is another Google audit record that basically this is the thing that's like, I created a token and I authorized this user on this particular application. So I'm like, aha, now I'm going to see what happened with Peg that she got this login going. So if we look here, again, there's no connection to anything, but we can look at the application and we get a client ID and the application name. So the client ID is just a hex representation of a thing that's in the Google App Store in their directory that you can go and look up, but they also provide the common name. And in this case, it's Chrome. So Chrome has authenticated Peg, which is cool. But do you ever log into Chrome?
Well, no.
Right.
I mean, the only time I've ever done that ever was for a very specific instance.
Right.
Right.
You can choose to sign into your browser, and we do corporately.
Yeah.
Personally, we don't. We
Right.
don't ever sign into our browsers.
Right.
For privacy reasons. Whether or not it works, who knows how the underpinnings of the browsers work these days. But corporately, we do. They're managed browsers. They save state, allow us to move between machines and all that kind of stuff. But we never actually log into Chrome. So I'm like, I kind of doubt Peg logged into Chrome. So now we've got to go back to the listing and look at the rest of the events that occurred around this time to figure out, okay, like, I understand where this login came from. I also understand that Chrome did it, but nobody sits around logging into Chrome first thing in the morning, right? They're logging into something else. So something else that Peg did must have caused this Google login event to occur. And so when we look back in the list, we're going to see.
Do you want me to go back to the list?
Yes, please.
Okay. I just wasn't sure where we were going.
sorry.
So. This is where we wave our hands and do the Charlie Brown
This
thing.
is always the amusing part of any screen share is when you're screen sharing a window and the mouse is moving and you know the person's doing something, but you're actually not able to see what they're doing. And that's actually the death knell of any presentation where someone's like, and I'm here and here and here. And like, if you're showing anything, I'm just seeing your mouse moving. Like, damn it. And
So it would have been, I should have just like done screen caps of this screen as well. Would have been faster. But
Probably.
I didn't. So
we'll do that for show 2.
Sure.
Yeah. So we see it correlated in time and space as if it were Star Trek. There's a bunch of Okta records. So like, okay, clearly something happened in Okta that triggered Google Workspace to do a thing. And so what's nice about Turngate and our product is you kind of get this single view into all your SaaS audit logs. So here I can see Okta and Google Workspace logs side by side. And again, recognizing that there's no like connective tissue between these things, we're just going to have to do our best to correlate events based on time, IP address, and identity to see what was going on. So the top one, we're going to start at the top of this policy evaluate single sign-on. So something has asked Okta to evaluate a single sign-on attempt. And so when we look at that, we're going to see at least kind of a normal human activity because humans aren't spending their day actually logging into frickin' Chrome. So in this case, here's the guts of an Okta log. First of all, one thing you'll notice looks totally different than the Google log, which is, again, the nature of these SaaS audit records. Like Google and Okta and everybody are making things that are formatted differently. The only common thread is really they're all JSON for the most part. For the most part, there's a few that aren't. Inside of an Okta log, and we actually have a blog that, Taryn, if you don't mind posting, if you can find it on the website, about the internals of Okta
I think there's 2
logs.
actually.
Yeah, there's an internals of Okta logs and internal of Google logs. Inside of the Okta logs, there's kind of 2 areas that we primarily look at. There's the target, which is, I guess, some shorthand way of saying like, this is the thing that happened, and the outcome is like, this is the result of the thing that occurred. And so in this case, what we see is that Peg is trying to authenticate to our dev environment. The Turngate square bracket dev is actually our dev instance. And what's interesting about that, and we'll see just underneath it with a OpenID Connect, is that we use a company called Stravosity for our SAML provider for our application. So Stravosity is kind of a small startup that's kind of pushing up against Auth0 and that kind of thing. And we know some of the early stage folks over there. We're happy with the product. We've been using it for a while now. And so Peg, starting her day, went to log into the development instance of Turngate. And this is the request, the OIDC request from Stravosity to Okta. And so we see this here. And then in the next one, in the next log from the series, I think we see that she was
the next one. It's the next one is another user auth.
Yes.
Right. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe is that the next one we're going to, or just to save me a window jump.
Where am I? We're going to the user auth for the first one.
The first user auth. Yeah. Okay.
So then we see that Peg successfully authenticates to Okta through Stravosity. So Heidi's going to pull that up now. Oh yeah, the magic mouse. It's
Magic
moving.
mouse,
It's moving.
magic
It's clicking on
mouse.
things. Do 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 do.
Listen, I'm going as fast as I can.
There we go. So again, we got the target and the outcome here, and we see success. So Peg has successfully logged into our development environment. Yay! Not exactly the most exciting thing in the world, but this is again, like, we're trying to pull some threads here. It's not well connected to the previous event, except the sense of the ideas, the alternate idea is the same. There's a few things here that kind of tie it together, but it looks like this is the end of the story. So we're like, what the heck happened? Like, how did this Peg authenticating to our development environment result in a Google login happening? Because those knee bone, thigh bone, those things are not connected directly. So the next SSO request that we get
is a second user auth.
The second user auth. And what we see in that, as Heidi does the magic mouse clicking.
You can keep calling that out.
I think, no, it's great. I love why, because it's like, clearly it's like going around. It's just, and so in this case, then, we see that we're trying to authenticate to Google Workspace.
Yeah.
And what's happening here, and if you kind of know browsers, Google Chrome just saw a person that it knows do a thing that it also wants, which is like authenticate. Like, here's a user I know the identity of, Peg at Turngate.io. They just authenticated, and what I would really want to do is I want to authenticate her to me as well, because I have all this magical capability to unlock that I need to authenticate to my browser for. And so Google Chrome then decides it's going to request the same thing, and it rides on the back of the original Okta session to then try to authenticate Peg. And that's the thing that ends up triggering the Google Workspace event. And so if we go back, can you bring up the actual, just go back to Turngate, go back to our application?
I can.
Sorry.
I have to find it first.
Okay, it's buried.
It's kind of a little buried.
The funny thing about what's going on Heidi's screen right now, she's also screen capped with all the tabs. And so she's living the joy of windows that have tabs in them that aren't actually a browser. They're just a flat image. So you can click on it and then be like, what the hell?
Oh, I also just got logged out. So hang on.
The analogous part of it,
please.
I'll hold. The analogous part of it to me is when I'm in a Zoom meeting and someone is sharing their screen and I go full genius and try to click on what's on their screen. And then that obviously doesn't work. My brain internalizes that for about 30 seconds, and then I try to click on their crap again. So I'm pretty good at forgetting that I can't click on Zoom screens. So
you want to know what's happening right now?
Are you stuck in a 1Password death spiral?
Hold, please.
So, not to throw shade, far be it from us, Heidi and 1Password apparently in a past life crossed paths in some sort of Shakespearean
we threw down
and it didn't go well for Heidi. She lost out, and 1Password absolutely hates Heidi. On top of that, we have locked down 1Password, so it requires you to authenticate through our IDP. And so when you go to authenticate to 1Password, it also asks you to authenticate to Okta, which sometimes turns out it's a problem because 1Password has your Okta credentials in them. And so it is I will say, a bad user experience. Kyle's pointing out that he's even opened a ticket for some of this with 1Password. And I've known Heidi a long time. And,
sorry.
And I will just say that bad user experiences and her do not get along. There's very, very little sympathy in Heidi's universe for shitty user experience, especially when it comes to things that require her to do the same thing every day for no goddamn reason. Why is this thing asking me again? What is happening? I don't get it. What am I supposed to do? Here, hands me the laptop. So, good. We ended up with our first Twitch bot spam. That's wonderful. I feel like
did we swear?
Did
we say bad things?
Oh no, we didn't say bad things.
Oh.
It's someone else's, and they're using the weird Latin characters to try to, or non-Latin characters to try to get around it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that. So anyway,
we're back.
We're back.
Oh, hang on. Give me 1 second.
So again, what we discovered here, our little journey. To be clear, it's not a security issue.
No,
No,
no. It was just more of a journey of interest than anything else.
yeah, and it started in what the hell is this login event? And it turns out when you look at the login event, it doesn't tell you anything. And the only thing you can do is go back in time and try to correlate roughly these events. And we're fortunate. There's only 12 of us, and we
Made it a little easy.
Well, and we work from home too, right?
Yeah.
Worse people have to look for you and I at the same IP address, and that's as complicated as any investigation gets. But if you're in a big enterprise, and if Peg was working in an office with 1,000 people, it would be really hard to tie all these threads together. And I think that the challenge really is like, Okta and Google, as much as like Google is there's a service here that was authenticated to, there's no connective tissue in there that allows you to concretely tie these events together. The unfortunate reality is like that's just a common thread on all these applications, on all these services, is that they all create their own audit log structures, and none of them provide any breadcrumbs for investigators to go follow. So,
did you want to look at the last?
No,
image?
I think
No?
we've
Right.
the horse is dead at this point. So,
Right.
Anyway, we've picked on Peg enough. So I think
It really wasn't picking on Peg at all. She didn't do anything at all.
no, there was nothing. It was just curiosity, and I think it's interesting to see how these systems work together or don't at times, and to try to understand, like, based on the telemetry that we get, how much assurance do we have about what's actually going on. And this is a simple case where there is no problem, and it's still squishy, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't ideal. Anyway, that was a Herculean effort to demo that. I think we'll.
I mean, it wasn't bad. I think it's just again, we took screenshots in part to protect the data, and then just I got logged out because I didn't touch the screen, so that was on me. That's happened before. Remember that one time during ticket sales?
So I think and it actually kind of underscores, it's interesting because we, like I said, we use our own data as our own kind of test case, but it's a challenge to generate a test corpus for any kind of environment.
And we've been working on that. And this would obviously be easier if we had, it'd be easier if we had fake data, but quite honestly, we wouldn't have seen this if we had fake data.
No, like totally synthetic data would never have shown this stuff. Like you can generate all kinds of random data and it'll never show it. But we even had that problem. Like we had it with ShmooCon when we were trying to load test systems and do representative testing of like what the internet was doing to punish our ticketing servers. And
but I fixed that by putting out a call on the internet to come.
You fix the test corpus by having a live corpus, just having random strangers kick our server in the face.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job.
They did.
Yeah,
they did. But even like I used to work test and evaluation for research programs, and T&E was oftentimes just as hard as the research project itself, because we had to create test corpuses that were as robust, if not more so, than what the performers were going to throw at us.
I was going to say my situation was pretty easy. I just needed a bunch of people to hit a server at once.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually generating data. I was just generating traffic, right?
Right.
I mean, I can't.
It was still testing.
Well, but it was very simple.
Yeah.
I needed a single data point.
Right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I don't think we need to ask ChatGPT for questions today. I think.
Well, we could, or I mean, I suppose we do have 10.
Oh yeah, we do.
Watching.
If anybody has questions they want us to answer, it can be about
anything,
Turngate
including cheese
or logging
or logs.
Yeah, logs or logging.
Logs or
all
logging.
All definitions
of logging.
Of logging. Yeah. We'll see.
Cheese is actually not. Hey, Preston, how are you?
Oh my God, we have a person who's responsible for some of this nonsense.
So, funny story about Preston, if we're going to pick on people whose names start with P.
I don't know which funny story we're going to go with. But.
Well, it's not really a funny story. It's more like it is a funny story. So Preston, back before like the internets, we had the internets. We all worked at companies that purported to provide internet. But this is back before like GPS, right? So Preston was what we were for each other in one of our many capacities of being friends is each other's GPS systems. So we would be out and about, and we would, like, if we were to get lost, we would be like, we did have cell phones, believe it or not. So it was right on the cusp of
Yeah, the period of
everything.
times where cell phones existed and were somewhat ubiquitous, but GPSs weren't. It was a
Right.
small window of time.
So we would call and be like, Preston, I can see a red building at the corner of this intersection. Where do I go next? You know? And then, you know, Preston would be in front of his computer, and he could go to like Alta Vista or whatever it was, flavor of the day. And I don't know, go to his bookshelf and pull out an atlas. I mean,
yeah, right. If it was fancy, it was MapQuest. But
yeah, right. And then you know, direct us where to go. And this was true no matter where we were in the world for a couple of years.
Probably could have been a service for like 2 years, right?
Right.
Like I'm lost, right? Like Movie Phone, except it's locate a phone. You could just be like, call them up and be
Yeah.
like, here's what I see and where I think I am. Help me get to some other place.
But this was our reality, because maybe we just got lost a lot. I'm not sure. I have a very bad sense of direction compared to you.
And to be clear, it was like in a town like Anchorage, which is bounded by water and mountains on 2 sides.
Well, listen,
and has
I
one
had
road
east
out
and
north
west.
and one route out
East
south.
and west was easy.
Yeah. The original platform. I don't know if the P stands for platform as a service or Preston as a service. I like to think it's Preston.
It's
as
probably
a,
both, right?
Yeah.
I think it's both.
It's
yeah.
Preston's platform as a service. Anyway,
super funny.
Cool. Well, we definitely got an audience today. So last little bit, we want to talk about some of the upcoming events that we are maybe not going to, but are at least in the neighborhood.
I think I did add some.
You did
upcoming
add some.
events.
I didn't do any of this part of the agenda, so I was going to let you talk about it.
I put some in there. I guess happening right now. I didn't know if we wanted. I'll let you talk about the first one.
Sand Security East. So you've labeled it Sand Security East, Baltimore.
Listen,
and I didn't know if it meant it was
copied and pasted
in
directly.
East Baltimore or was Sand Security
I think it's
East
Coast.
Baltimore.
Listen,
okay.
It was a direct cut paste, so maybe the M dash disappeared.
Yeah,
I have no
because
idea.
East Baltimore is like a sand pile on the other side of the Fort McHenry Tunnel. I'm not throwing shade at East Baltimore. I'm just saying, like, when I drive out of Baltimore, the last thing you see is this giant pile of sand on the east side of town. Or is it coal? I don't know. It's just a big pile of dirt.
Isn't it like the stuff they spread on the roads during the
Yeah,
winter?
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It might be salt or sand, or
It
I
might
don't
be
know.
salt or sand. I'm not
so
sure.
it could be sands on a sand pile.
I'm not sure where to go with it.
Anyway, but in a slightly different category, in National Harbor this coming week, next week.
Oh, it's Gartner's going to be here.
Gartner's in town again.
Yeah.
So for those of you fortunate enough to have enough money to buy Gartner subscriptions, you'll be living the high
You could
life.
just be like us and go lobby crash.
Yeah, go lobby crash.
We typically do.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have plans to do that this year though.
No, I don't know that we do.
It's not actually like a lobby crashing kind of event. We just know people who attend, and so we go down and typically
the
have dinner.
LobbyCon is strong at other events. At Gartner's Risk Summit, it is not.
Just to be clear, the last time we went down for a Gartner event that was happening down at the they usually have it at the Gaylord, right? Most often.
It's at the Gaylord.
It was prom or.
Oh yeah, it was holy shit.
But it was like really bougie prom.
Yeah. So it was Gartner Risk and then some prom was all happening.
Oh, I think it was several proms.
Yeah. And so the restaurants
But it was like influencer prom because like they were like hired people taking pictures.
Oh yeah. And all the restaurants
so.
were like packed with like teenagers, like really fancy dressed up with like photographers and then
us
risk managers. It was really
it was funny. It was great. It was fantastic. But anyway, so that's coming up next week.
Yeah.
So
and then I think we should, we are the next thing we're going to be at is less than a month away. If that's not terrifying. Do you know where we're going to be at next?
Yes, I do. We will be at Colonel Con.
The con
in Omaha.
About corn.
Well, it's corn adjacent.
Yeah, they actually do have popcorn sponsors. Which I think is wonderful.
We are not sponsoring the popcorn. We are sponsoring the coffee this year.
Oh, we are sponsoring. Yeah. Popcorn makes our stomach upset. Coffee we live on, so we sponsored the coffee.
Something like that.
Something like that. So we'll be out there in Omaha for anyone who wants to come trek out to Omaha, and it's a great event run by some.
It's my birth state.
It is your birth state, strangely enough. for somebody who spent a lot of time in Alaska. You got born in
Listen, it rhymes.
Nebraska. Yeah, it does. It does. But it's a great event. It's like the 4th or 5th year they put it on.
I think it's technically the 6th
6th
year.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a couple of them in person because of,
of COVID,
the things.
yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but it's been a little longer than that. But it's only like their 3rd or 4th in person event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great event. I don't know if tickets are still available, but we'll be out there, and can't recommend it enough. It's the first Friday of April, first Thursday and Friday of April, I think, like 4th.
I'm leaving on Friday, so I believe it is the
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
Of April. So, yeah, we'll be living large in Omaha. They have unsurprisingly good steaks
and a great zoo.
A really good zoo, like an incredible zoo, all things being equal. Yeah. There's a lot of investment money out there looking for places to get, nonprofits to invest in. Apparently one of them's the freaking zoo. It's an amazing thing.
Anyway, so I'm sure we'll mention that again, but yeah. Omaha is the next place we will be. And then I'm sure we'll mention this again as well, but we will be attending Charm besides Charm here in Baltimore. So
yeah,
later on in April.
I think. I don't know. So many events coming up. Crazy. All right. Well, that was a fun adventure for the first time. I think it worked out pretty well.
But no questions about logs. I'm kind of disappointed.
No, but I do think Baltimore Dune is probably a high contender for the Sands next year. If they could, I think Sands should just lean into the sand thing and just
I'm here for that.
Yeah, I'm totally here for that.
It's log.
It's big as heavy. It's wood.
I think the answer to that question is
kids like logs.
Yes, so. I had Lincoln logs as a child.
Did you?
I mean, I was young and
I did too. I also grew up in a household with older people, and we had.
Did you just call me old?
Yeah. No problem. We predated the internet by a few years. We're old, so. Anyway, before this turns into any kind of marital issue, we're going to end the show. So. Anyway, thanks everybody. We'll be here doing this again next week. We'll have a different topic to jam about. If you have ideas or anything that you're interested in having us chat about or anything, just let us know. As Terrence's been pointed out, if you're interested in trying our product out, there's a free trial. You can give it a shot for 45 days on us. We're pretty happy with it. We'll take any feedback you got. And in general, if you have SaaS log questions, we're happy to nerd out about it. Because apparently that's our life right now. So.
That and logs.
Yeah. It's not often you get to travel with your spouse talking about SaaS audit logs in the car for half an hour. It's
wasn't exactly on my bucket list item of all my my
things that you wanted to learn. I thought I was going to go do pottery or glass blowing, but instead we're going to talk about logs.
Hey, I've done the glass blowing.
Yeah, you never done pottery.
No, we should do that.
Which is ironic.
Is it though?
Given your first name.
My first name.
That was the joke. Actually, it's your last name. Yeah. All right, joke's getting stupid. All right, we good?
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.